You know, speaking as the last person can be very challenging, especially when everything has been said. But let me give a voice to what has been discussed under the digital desk. A lot of course has been said. That means that I'll be very quick. First of all, we have a challenge. We identified the issue of insufficient training, which has largely been talked about. And we felt like there is a general calculated exclusion of digital reporters. General calculated exclusion. What do we mean by that? We are seeing scenarios where TV or radio, that is the traditional media, including also print, journalists from that particular space are more seen than journalists from the digital space. Why? Because if you look at major events like what we had here in Nairobi last year in September, ACS, add-on to UNEA 6, it was very hard for you to get accredited as a digital journalist because somebody will ask you from which media house. So maybe people expect to say you are from BN, you are from the Star, you are from the Standard, or from Citizen TV, Citizen Radio, and all those other established media houses. So one thing that came up is that there is that lack of, there is that general exclusion of reporters drawn from digital side. Then I understand people from print have talked about a possibility of having so much data out there, but we cite this as one of the gaps. Insufficient data. What do we mean by that? We are looking at a scenario where there are some organizations that, in as much as they have quality data, they are out to sell that particular data. So that becomes a problem, or sometimes you realize that there is disjointed data, or the credibility need is not worth a pinch of salt. And also there is lack of updated data when it comes to issues of climate change, except for organizations like UNEP who have been around for quite some time. Then you also cite lack of specialization. Many media houses have not prioritized climate change and related stories. So despite the fact that we have a lot going on, like we saw what we were trained on yesterday in terms of construction, so many sub-themes under climate change, we still have a problem of insufficient data in as far as such issues are concerned. Then we also don't have this aspect of specialization, so we lack specialization. And it's very interesting to have learned yesterday that yes, it's possible to have specialization, especially on maybe climate financing, health, and just picking specific areas where one can delve into. Then the other gap or problem that we identified is financing independent coverage. We have a lapse on that. We don't have adequate finance to really champion the coverage of issues of climate change. So what are we suggesting? We are looking at a scenario where partners can come on board, like let's say GIZ can come on board and say, no, we want to finance this particular desk fully for it to be operational. But the problem that comes is that most of these partnerships are very short-lived, where maybe somebody comes on board for 6 months or 1 year, yet this particular desk has to be consistent, just the same way as we see with politics and other issues. Another challenge that we rather gap is the question of staffing challenges, and under this we say that rarely you will see a media house putting up an advert looking for a climate change reporter. They want an all-rounder. It's like when you see an organization looking for a communication personnel, we have seen this joke online that the organization is looking for departments in one person. They want a video editor, they want a social media influencer, they want a writer, they want a grant writer, and many other things. So you realize that that does not give the niche to that particular person. So how are we going to address the issue of staffing? We are looking at a scenario where we can have maybe media camps. Let's say, I think Nation has one, Standard also has one, where young journalists, maybe from school, are taken into a training such that we are particularly interested in turning this new graduate right from college to inculcate the spirit, or rather the art of storytelling using through climate change. So we can equally, we are also looking at a problem related to financing independent coverage, and we say that there is need to maybe equip some journalists, maybe to see to it that they are venturing into investigative reporting on climate issues, and that our partners can work with that together with staffing issues so that to make that a success. Another challenge we are having, or rather another gap, is that there is a problem with financing. Particularly, we are looking at a scenario where we should make climate change stories a revenue stream. If you go to our websites, be it Africa.nation, be it Citizen.digital, be it Standard.co.ke, you will realize that most of these stories are actually what I would say hidden under specific columns. So you realize that it's not so vocal on the websites that we are actually targeting. Why can't we then make that particular column as huge as possible, like you will see maybe local news or something close to that? So we can make climate change stories a revenue stream, that's what I'm saying, so that we attract advertisers to this particular column. Another issue that we are citing, it has to do with the question of insecurity. Our colleague here from, was it Time Red or something, he mentioned that there is that question of where when you call somebody for an interview within your studios, they are hesitant because they feel there is a problem in that particular area, and maybe they will run to a studio where they feel they are more safe. So we are saying that there is need to dismantle information cartels in areas that are polluted, for example, areas like Dandora, areas like Korgosho, Madara, and many other areas where it can be very risky for a journalist to go into those particular areas, especially when you are pursuing stories that are likely to brush some particular waters in a bad way. Then we went to question 2. What are the key sectors? We have energy, transport, blue economy, health, building and construction, agriculture. We also have WASH, tourism and wildlife, NGOs, INGOs, CSOs, parliament, policymakers, judiciary, the media itself, the creative sector, government and state actors, diplomacies, private and legal. And then we have academia. I'll make a small point about diplomacies. We know that when, for example, we want to go to COP, it becomes necessary for you to kind of go through some form of a consulate or something close to that. And we all know the kind of cycles that you can go through when it comes to looking for sort of permission to get into that the other country. So what are the challenges associated with finding credible sources? Number one, we flag the issue of availability. Some of them are just not available. They will redirect you to some email which is very dormant, to me or Maswali, then that will be it. The question of corruption, somebody feels that because climate change, there is a lot of financing, so somebody feels that for me to give you this particular information, I feel you should give me something. And for those of you, or rather for those of us who have been able to, reporting from the field, sometimes you go to a group, maybe you want to talk about a certain issue about climate change, they already have a knowledge, or rather believe that since you are coming from Citizen TV or from whichever media organization, they think you have some money to give to them so that you are able to get this information, especially those they don't understand that media is not per se into buying content from them. Then the other challenge is many red tapes and bureaucracies. I know it's been talked about. Then the question of time. Some of them do not understand the concept of the concept of time element when it comes to processing news. Then we have a problem of masqueraders and quacks. I know the media has also had that particular challenge, and good enough media council is working on that. Then there is lack of database on climate change experts. I think people from print had also mentioned that. Then we have a problem of sources biasness and perception on new media. And one of the very interesting conversations that came out of that particular point is when you go to an event, somebody will ask you, hii story ulichapisha wapi? Because they expected to see themselves in a hotel room on a screen or something. Then you are sending them a link to the story that you did. So they will be like, oh, I thought it's going to TV or something, because for digital also you have the audiovisual element. So they thought as you are filming, they thought it will appear on some particular TV. So there's that perception when it comes to the new media. Then some sources have tendencies of controlling information, and many of the speakers, when we were having this discussion, thought that there are specific organizations, especially the INGO and NGOs, who feel that, look, because we are giving you this information, we are therefore going to shape the kind of story that comes out of it. In fact, some said that in some instances, someone wants your raw copy before it goes to the press. You can see the level of interruption or infiltration that comes with that. Then there are some specific NGOs that want to push a shaped opinion and agenda out of what you may need. There are cases where I've come to England, for example, to just to seek opinion about a scientific matter like maybe methane and all that. But because you want to push a certain agenda, you prioritize that than just having what I needed from you. So you go ahead and shape that particular opinion, and now you change my story and you insist that because you've talked to us about this should be the case. That becomes a problem. Then number 3, how well is the media in Kenya enabled to cover climate change? 3 points here. Number 1, we are realizing that while right to access to information is enshrined in our constitution, the practicality bit of it is in doubt. Some data providers may want payment for them to release that particular information. So you are seeking information. I believe it's Article 35 of the vote, where you have the right to access information. But because of bureaucracies, especially when government agencies are sanctioned to stop advertising specific media, especially online, over such standards. I'm not seeing much of advertising from the government or any other private government agencies, particularly on online media, because of the reservations such government agencies still hold. Maybe most of them will go to print, and most of the time, because we have the MyGov, that's where all the government advertising has to go through. So we have a problem with that. And if you remember the issue of Moses Kuria versus Nation Media Group, so we have that. We have the freedom of the press, it's guaranteed, but then there is this public declaration that this particular media house should not have advertiser or other government advertising through the channels. Then number 3, in the prevailing hardships or other economic hardship, the media is not equipped to spearhead independent coverage of climate change stories. So, and also, we realize that these actually extend to as far as the remuneration of journalists. So most of journalists who are online are also paid so well, maybe to do this work independently. So from this, it can be observed that the media houses in Kenya have challenges in fully creating, nurturing, and even enhancing creation of climate change desks to spearhead such efforts. So if you ask me how well is the media in Kenya enabled to cover climate change, I would say not so much. It's not so much equipped to do all this work. And another problem that it's coming up strongly, maybe this is off curve, is the problem of monetization. Any media house that is thinking about getting into digital content production, the first question that comes from their mind is, how are we going to turn this content into money? And you know, because maybe for television, they know a 30-second ad will cost this much. For a radio station, they know a 30-second ad will cost this much. So another big challenge that comes with the digital media is the question of monetization, and that is been spoken so eloquently about. So up to that level, I would really like to thank you for listening in. Thank you.